and welcome all to another The Youth War Talk. I know it was off for a week, and we are back with our new season. And this season, have mercy, this season we're dealing with some hot topics. You know, some hot topics we will be dealing with this season. We have a wonderful cast here with us this evening. And of course, we have again, because you know, when it's nice, you do it twice. So we have our brethren, our brother from Trinidad with us this evening, Brother Stenson. He is joining us this afternoon. And we have the usual team of Brother Kashif, Brother Kit, and the lone female this evening, Sister Eritiola. So this evening, we want to dive right into it. We want to look at, and you know what we're looking at this evening? It is something very touchy to some people. And now, brethren, I want those who are listening, you know, persons who are tuning in from Jamaica, have mercy, that we did not come up with these topics. We realized that we reached out to our young people and they sent out these topics to us, so we want to address them here. So we want persons to light up the chat as well as we look at post-traumatic church syndrome. That is the theme for this evening. Post, have mercy. Post-traumatic church syndrome. And we hope by God's grace, and I want us to understand this, that whereas persons may share their experiences, and as the theme suggests, and what we are hearing from the theme about experiencing trauma in the church, or if members have treated you bad, we are not sitting here to bash anyone in the church. We are not sitting here to talk or bring down anybody in the church, but we are here to share God's truth. And that, hey, although the church may have different situations, we want to also have a resolve. So we want, at the end of this production, at the end of this, we would be able to say, this is what we can do to help even those some of us who have experienced trauma, and even those who are within the church, we can help with this kind of thing. So it is a very serious situation, very serious, and we're going to be diving into it right about now as we look at this wonderful topic. So brethren, we're going right into it. So I don't know, because right about now I just have so much of things. I don't know who to start. I don't know who to go and throw it by. I don't even know. I'm afraid to call her name now, because you know I don't want anybody to get any trauma because of me. Right? But the basic thing is what we're going to look at is like the simplest term of what trauma is. Right? And then when we talk about church, we're looking at emotional trauma most of the times, right? Because the emotions is involved. So the trauma in the simplest terms is that you're having, and it's an emotional upset. Right? You're emotionally upset. And based on how emotionally you are upset, it could affect you for a couple of days, it could affect you for a couple of months, and it could go so far that one incident could affect you for a couple of years. Right? Do we know about these kind of things that happen in the church?
Definitely.
Know about these things happening in the church? With our brethren, our godly brethren, we are supposed to be marching to heaven. So how are these things happening in the church? And how do we look at it, and how do we deal with these kind of situations in the church?
Well, for me, first thing, right, one point that I made even before we started is that the church's message is perfect, right? The gospel is perfect. However, the church or the people are not perfect. So therefore, you can't expect people to be, or have no flaws in the church. We are human beings at the end of the day, right? So, of course, they would have conflicts going on in the church with people, and also understand that people are different levels spiritually. So some persons are not even yet converted and they're going to church every Sabbath. So things will happen that are distasteful, but it doesn't mean that you should lose focus or lose the desire or the zeal to come and serve your God, And some people go so far as to even not come to church anymore.
True.
Period. Right, true. Which I think is not the right, So that's one way you could see it, in my opinion.
But you made mention to no one is perfect. But when we're dealing with trauma or hurt, to me, it is when the expectation that you have placed in someone who you hold in high esteem, and that trust is lost or broken, right? So that expectation now is dropped, right? But how they could do me that way? Because okay, so a perfect example, you put you're going through something home, right? And you go by the elder, and you're talking to the elder because the elder is a spiritual person.
Right.
You believe in this elder. You know, he does preach and thing real good. And they say, elder, oh God, you know, my home thing, my mother only on my back, always harassing me. That same elder now go and tell your mother. And your mother said to blaze your thing. So you want to spread home business outside and he beat you. That could cause hurt.
Yeah.
Because you put your expectation into this elder to address the situation, but he was not trained enough or tactful enough to how to deal with the situation. And now I am hurt because it causing rift in the family. Me, I want to talk to the elder. You see them 7 days, I done with that.
Right.
True, yeah.
Yeah, and then you see with that now, the long-term effect. You could have that because now you could be like, well, if I talk to this one and that happened, then I don't want to talk to anybody else. So I'm keeping everything to myself now. And then all of a sudden, now you start to keep everything to yourself. You have this kind of sour look. So every time you want to deal with people, you're always like, your conversation is very brief. It's like, hey, how are you going? Fine. They're cutting off because of that one experience. And I just think that what hurt brings, and I want to use the word hurt because yes, the big word is trauma, but it's actually a hurting, right? So you want to use hurt and say like, you know, because you're hurting and got not one instance now you cannot, like, you're cut off now. You really, God can bring you up to where you want to be because you haven't dealt with that, or you dealt with that the wrong way. And then unfortunately, and we're not giving the devil any power, but the devil uses this kind of situation to place in your mind now that how everybody stop, how everybody is. So you know you can't trust anybody because you see how he go and talk to that one day and how he just go and take it all out of proportion, and now it's like, so you can't talk to anybody, you have to keep it to yourself. And we all know that once you keep everything locked up with all your problems, it's just a matter of time before it spills out. Right? And our bodies is not supposed to be just holding in everything. We have to be able to let out. So you know, as you talk about that, what can we then do? And I want persons to put in the chat as well. What can we do to really like create a safe space where people could actually be comfortable in dealing with situations, they wouldn't get hurt, and even with like if situations jump at them, how to help them deal with their hurt? How can we do that?
I think first of all is an area of confidentiality,
right?
And that's the first thing that I think we need to start building with, because a lot of issues pass through the church and then we hear them on the podium. We hear them on the pulpit.
True.
You know, we hear, well, I'm not going to call any name, but you know, XYZ had an issue and nobody knows it's you, but you are hearing your story out in the open, right? Or you might hear it somewhere down the line that there was in another church somewhere, but it still hurts you because you told that person something in confidence, and although nobody knows that it's you, you are still, but why would he say it? Why would she talk my story, even though, because there's just some level of, you told this person and you don't expect them to tell anybody else, even though they didn't mention a name and nobody might ever know it's you, but the story is still in the open. You know, and so I think first of all, it begins with building confidentiality. You know, and then also openness.
Right.
We have our culture is not one of openness. The church is not one of openness. Right? Nobody is, I guess everybody feels judged.
Right.
Even though there is no judgment, right? Even though you might come and you might be able to share an issue and no one will judge you. I think we just feel judged all the time. No matter what we do, no one feels comfortable enough to share, this is my struggle. Right? And so I think if you know, at least be open with somebody or find somebody who is, you know, kind of in the same position as you are, and then you could kind of open up to them. I don't think you should open to everybody all at the same time. You know, And then that way you kind of find, because I tell myself not every single person in the church is well, let me put it this way, loves me the way other certain people love me. You know, not everyone has that same relationship. Let me put it that way. Everyone has the same relationship with me.
Right.
You know, so there are people that my relationship with them is different, and what I tell them would be different. You know, so we have to find people within the church that we could really, you know, relate to and gravitate to. So I think that's one of the first things that
I can only speak for the youths in the congregation, right? I know growing up, I identified with persons who were having the same struggles or similar situations to what I was going through. So for the youths out here who are wondering, you know, answering Kern's question, how can we go about dealing with all these trauma and these issues? The first thing you have to do is find persons who can relate to you. It might be difficult at first, but you have to, as Keith said, you have to find that at least one person to confide in. You find that one person, it might be probably your church friend or somebody who, you know, a little, I don't want to say younger than you, but you'll find persons within your age gap, your age group, firstly in the church. You go to that person and say, well, hello, you know, I'm having this issue, or listen, brother, this did this to me, or sister, this did this to me. How do you, you know, what are your views on this situation? Do you think it could have been done differently? Do you identify with my problem? Then that person now, once they are genuine and once you trust this person, because remember, you want to find someone who can relate to you, someone who knows how to approach you, how to give that response to, how to listen to you and give a response thereafter. So you go to this person, you tell them whatever, then you hear what they have to say. Afterwards, if you find, no, this person cannot help me or this situation isn't going somewhere, then probably it would be difficult to find someone outside of that group to go and confide in again, because this person didn't understand me. But I would say you always have to have a prayer in your heart. Always pray. So you have this person that don't understand, fine, pray again. Lord, show me where do I have to go. Now, the thing with the church, or the thing with churches, most churches, right, is we have a lot of youths, and I speak for the youths especially, that we are so all over the place. We have youths here. I want to confide in you, but you cannot understand me on that level, because our youths are everywhere. So we have to come together as, you know, we are here now. I believe this space is a safe space. We have to come together as youths. Does this youth group make sense? You know, so as youths on the higher level, I would think that, you know, in dealing with trauma, what we have to do first is create that space for our youth, because I know generally our youths are the ones suffering and going through that trauma. When we create that space, what I was saying earlier in terms of you finding that one person in that group you could go to, you go to that person and you talk to that person. If it doesn't work out, you know that there is this space, there is this group. You then go to this person. You don't want all your business, you don't want to go to this one, this one, this one. But at least you have that group that was identified by the higher heads in the church to, you know, have this space where you can go to persons with. And, you know, you have to have a leader as well. It's important to have a leader to lead that group. You can't have, I want to say, a 60-year-old or a 90-year-old person leading this group, and you're here like, I'm having this issue, brother. I'm having this issue, sister. And they're like, well, back in my days, we didn't, you know, so I would say it starts on the higher head. The higher head needs to identify someone who is strong enough, someone who has an exemplary life, you know, to lead this group. You then form this group, you then form this safe space, and in this safe space now, you have the youths presenting their matters. They're presenting, they're talking, listen, this is going on, this is going on. And most times when that happens, you have a lot of different stories coming in, you have different traumas being presented, right? So I would say the first step in solving these issues and in going about, well, in churches, in making things right, in solving these trauma incidents, is by creating a space so that the youths can open up to one another and help one another in whatever way. And of course, you have a leader who would guide them accordingly. Right. That person has to be God-oriented, Spirit-oriented, to say, listen, I hear you guys, so let's take it. Let's look at it from this level. Let me help you. Right. You go into the Bible. You then, you know, you handle it on that level. So that's my that's my solution to this traumatic, whole traumatic thing.
Nice.
I think it's so important because a lot of the trauma that we see in the church takes place in the youth stage.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the time. Because remember, the church is usually not the largest voice at that time. It's friends. Usually it's the friends.
Yes.
Right.
And so we find ourselves in all kind of different situations at that point in time. And then how supportive is the church? Now the church, we know the church is not supposed to support wrong. Right? And even though we do our madness, the church is not we know the church is not to support wrong. But a lot of people take the route of righteous indignation.
Right.
And so we cut out the sin. We must deal with that sin one time. We can't deal with it in church. And we have to have our positions, take care of that.
Right.
And then in doing so, and I'm not saying that we can't do that and have a standard, but in doing so, sometimes we alienate the youth.
Right. Right.
And, a lot of people leave the church because they're having issues, but the church is not supporting them. Right? And I think in that, a lot of us, we have to pray for discernment.
Yeah.
We are not, I think sometimes we are not the one to speak to everyone sometimes. We may see an issue in someone, and the first thing I think before we confront is to pray and ask, Lord, am I the one to speak to this person? I think, it's something I really think about, because sometimes how even if our approach is good, what we say is good, somebody might not receive the message the way that we intend to, because we were not the person for that person.
That's correct.
Right? So I think we need to pray and ask God, even as we see issues, as we grow, am I the one, Lord, to talk to this person? Because God might be talking to them, and as you said, as we began by saying, everyone is at a different stage in their walk. Right? And I think, there are persons for everybody, and that person might not be you. So pray and ask God first, am I the person to talk to this person about XYZ issue? I see them, their skirt short. And we know the issues that cause people to leave the church. Dress, these things. And you want to pull the sister to his side and say, sister, that skirt is too short. But you are not the person to do that. It might be a person in that age group. So sometimes we see issues, but first of all, let us pray and ask God, am I the one? And also let's be willing to support. Even though we see things that we don't like. I'll say, it's better if somebody at home doing madness than they're out there doing madness, for me. So we support people. We're not supporting them in the madness, but we're supporting them to get out and to make a better.
Jamal, before Spencer, go ahead. I saw Jamal said something there, right? It ties into what you were just saying. Not everybody in the church are friends. We don't need to be friends to love your brother and sister. That support doesn't have to come because, oh yeah, me and you are friends, so I know you're really good. That support needs to come from a place of love and a place of understanding that people go through things. We are humans, we have feelings, we go through all sorts of different things. You have to come from a place of understanding and love. So good point, Jamal.
I also want to piggyback on what the presenter before said, based on the context of knowing when is the right time, because sometimes it is not what you say, but it's how you say it to the young person. And also, you made mention to having a safe group and having a leader, but sometimes the leader have to be trained.
Yes.
You understand? Because you can't, not because you have a degree means that you are trained to deal with certain issues. Because people, certain young persons will go through different church hurts. So there may be a church hurt between young person to young person, right? In the sense that a boy and a girl, two Adventists or two Christians, they dealing in the church, well, they dealing relationship-wise.
Still use that word dealing?
Well,
Linking.
They link, right? And then you find out that that one of them being unfaithful. They're getting horned, they're getting butt, right? That could be a hurt,
for sure.
right? That could be very traumatic, right? And then there's also the other flip side of you and a senior person, right? You have this high esteem and they watching you, they talking to you all how that could be also a church hurt. And then too, there's also the flip side or another one which is prevalent now as the report has, that the Salga report has been made public, right? Where abuse in the church, right? And we have to, we cannot push that and shove it under the rug. It is real in the church.
That's right.
In the Adventist church, abuse because we have a lot of females being abused even in our church, right? And it is causing hurt. And these things will cause young persons to leave the church. They don't want to have nothing to do with 7 days again because their expectation is you're not supposed to be hurting me like this.
That's right.
No, Brother Simpson, the abuse we're talking about, let me just be clear for those who are watching, it's not just the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, these kind of things, it's also the emotional abuse, right? Imagine, you know, being in a church or being in a congregation where you are, you know, one of the leaders in the church. And because you are one of the leaders, you are so heavily judged and so you have so much expectations going for you. When you slip up or when this one thing happens, it's like, oh no, you committed the biggest sin. You have to be out because you did this. So that abuse is not only the physical aspect or the things that the normal abuse we know, it's also the emotional abuse. And all these things does or do lead to trauma, right?
And also, to wrap up my point I was making, go by a trained person, right? Sometimes you need to go and seek professional help. Nothing is wrong with you being a Christian, a Seventh-day Adventist, believing in spiritual prophecy and the Sabbath and State of the Dead and Sanctuary service and seeking professional help. Go by a trained counselor, a trained psychologist, a trained psychiatrist, and seek professional help because it can and will hurt you later on in the long run when you're ready to get into marriage. Me want those 7 days, man. Me want this, that man is bad.
But I mean, you guys haven't been, you guys haven't been acting right. Haven't been, making this saying or making us ladies forget that saying. So, that trauma it has been going, it has been going on for some time because I'm sure I've heard a lot of, SDA ladies as well. Probably not me, but a lot of SDA ladies around me, we were having a conversation and the most thing or the one thing I would hear is, oh no, I don't want no church man, I don't want no SDA man because the ones inside worse than the ones outside. Is this a form of trauma? Can trauma come like this? I believe so. We have been so institutionalized, I want to think, to always go this one way that once we change paths, it's like, and all the hate and the judgments that also causes the trauma. So, Brother Stenson, it's traumatizing.
So, okay, all right. Now, we're going lovely, we're going nice, and I like how we're going, but at this time, my producer is telling us that we need to just pause for a cause. We'll break, we'll be right back, and we'll continue to be looking at post-traumatic church syndrome. We'll be right back.
come and be a part of our family. Join us every Friday at 6:30 p.m. for family worship. Let us welcome in the Sabbath together as one. Each week we feature a new family. You don't want to miss it. So join us at 6:30 p.m. every Friday on ASI Media Tobago on YouTube or Facebook. See you there.
We are back. Yes, we're back. Yeah, we're back. It's like, what?
Yeah, we had a target. I was talking about the women in church. Not from not me. Please do not. Please don't come for me.
Yeah. All right. So we see in the chat, and then Kadisha, right now, because Kadisha thinking in the chat right over now, but Iwitiola, not all men in the church. I don't know what woman does get that from. And the unfortunate thing with that is this, right? And this is how hurt works. You don't have to hurt somebody multiple times for them to push to push people away. It's just that one bad experience, especially and when we talk about it earlier about your high expectations. Let me tell you something. If you all have a high, sometimes we have even unrealistic expectations of people, and if that person come and they just be like, you all for it, and they're like, which one is you talking about? I don't really about that. And that would hit you because you have such high expectations. And because of that now, instead of us sometimes we lower the expectations, because the reality is that you put up a wall not because you want to, but you want to protect yourself. Yeah. So at times somebody might be like, let me lower the expectations, but lowering the expectations now you're making yourself vulnerable. And I don't want to feel how I feel the last time. So you know what? Instead of lowering my expectations, I just cut off. I just put up a block, put up a wall, so that be like, this is what it is. If you want me and it's serious, this is what you have to come through, right? And you have good Adventist men out there, go cut through that wall, go climb that wall.
Break it down.
They will break down that wall. They will come and say, hey, this is what man's supposed to be. Where happened there before, that wasn't man. This is what man's supposed to be.
Can I understand? I'm just saying, I've heard. Right. I am not included. I've just heard, right?
Remember, I'm not saying that. You saying
just
that.
Making it clear for the viewers out here.
Right?
I want to say, trauma causes generalization.
Yes, it does.
And that's the problem that a lot of people have. So somebody hurt you, so a man, or let's say a man hurt you, all man bad. A woman hurt you. Well, we made these sweeping, when we become hurt, we made these sweeping generalizations. And again, it even comes back to persons in the church, as I said, them 7 days now. So somebody within church hurts you, and it may not be church, because you may still have people in church that will be in your corner. But one person hurt you, and now you have made that generalization. All of them bad. The church bad. And then, we continue. It just impacts. And as I say, you start building that wall. building the wall higher and higher and higher because you have made that generalization. So now nobody from the church can talk to you.
Can't talk to you,
Exactly.
yeah.
Because, your wall done reach Tower Babel levels already.
That goes back to what
somebody
I was
they smile with you, you remember.
Yeah.
Yes,
Guys,
yes.
I don't want you.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier. Remember, when we say church trauma, post-traumatic church syndrome, you know, although the name church or the word church is in there, we have to look at cases, you know, individually, on the personal level. You might have a traumatic experience with one individual, not the church. The church is just a building. The church is where we go to fellowship. So if you need to sort out that problem, sort out that issue, it's not to leave the church, and I'm speaking for myself as well, it's not to leave the church or to just jump shift, but rather to sort out that issue with that individual. And I think you were given a biblical example of how we should sort that out as well earlier.
Right?
Well, for me, I have a different perspective because let me say I get hurt in a church. Why must I stay there to be victimized and to be ridiculed? Right? Why must I stay? Right? No. For me, if I'm being victimized, I'm being hurt in this area, there are a lot of other churches in Tobago that I could go to. You understand? It doesn't mean that I have to leave the church.
No.
I may leave this location church.
Right, yeah.
But I could go Canaan, I could go up by Kern, Mount Zion, I could go Bon Accord. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you are being hurt, if you are being victimized in one particular church, do not leave the church.
Right.
Permanently.
No, but what he's saying, because sometimes, I am saying, well, if you want to put in the word permanent, they can put it in. Because I'm seeing that sometimes we even jump from church to church because of what happened there. But it mustn't be, yes, you could go and fellowship elsewhere, but it mustn't be something of permanence. Because the reality is that, and we have to look at the bigger picture, if we are all supposed to be heaven bound, it means that we're supposed to be together. So whatever that thing is, because the reality is that sometimes, because of the trauma, you might need time to heal. You might need time to deal with it with yourself. So you know, while dealing with it, you go your fellowship here, your fellowship there, you go and fellowship with your brethren elsewhere. But you must always come back, whoever caused it or whoever, you could come back there and deal with it there. And I think Brother Dwayne is putting something in the chat there, and I like that. Do you think that it's a plot of the devil to shape perspective that goes against God's ideals?
Yes, it is.
And that is a very good question, and it is a yes to that, because you sometimes we just be so hurt that we forget, we start to think evil towards people. And you know, once you have that kind of hate inside, the Lord can't really use you as He would like to, you know, because you are given into the hurt, you are given into that, and you're going and say, and as I was saying, you're generalizing everything. So anytime, for example, anytime somebody come and talk to you about your church, it's like, them people there, and you start to rattle off one time about what the people do for what they do and these kind of stuff. Some of us just go so far to go and they're saying everything, and whether says because they forget it. You understand? And that is, and it was mentioned in chat as well, say, hurting people hurt people. And we know that. So which means that if we know that, and I think that even as Christians, to me that is the simplest way. Hurting people hurt people. So if you are seeing that somebody's hurting you because they are hurting as well, and if that is the case, then no, you have to look at, am I the problem? And you see, because sometimes even as Christians, we just jump ahead to say they are the problem. And sometimes they're not the problem, you know. Sometimes you're the problem. And I'm not saying that to say to justify anything, but sometimes you are the problem. And I just always tell people, if you're moving from situation to situation to situation, from people to people, and it's the same problem, they're not the problem. You're the problem. So if you remove yourself, right, and the problem no longer exists, but you're going from place to place to place, but the problem exists in there, you are the problem. And as Christians, we always look at why people hurt us. We don't look at when we hurt people. And we have to look at that as well. Because we could be sitting here, and for all I know, that kid sitting down here and he have a grudge against me because of what I said about him sometimes. You know, somebody sitting down here cool.
Yes,
He's sitting down there cool.
Yes.
Right? Yeah? Where's that? Where's that? Nobody eat you, and I feel she must have done something too. But you know what? I forgive you. That's okay. Right? Now, it is so important for us to understand that even with dealing with pain, your spiritual maturity comes into play.
Yes,
as
it
well.
does.
Yes.
Because, now, you talk about this safe space, and brethren, it sounds simple, but I think that it can be achieved. But it can be achieved.
Yeah,
that we could create that space, and the chat lighting up about going to counselors and these kind of stuff.
And having licensed
but
Christian
then even
counselors.
licensed Christian, that's right. But even with that, if you create that safe space, it's not about solving the problem, but then once you realize what is going on, then it is easier now for you to recommend where is the best place for them to go. Because the reality is that a lot of people may not be equipped in the church to deal with it, but as Christians, we're supposed to know when to look for help. We're supposed to know when it's like, okay, this is this here, I can't deal with this. So we recommend this person for you to go and talk to deal with this. Because for me, I can't deal with this, but don't worry, whatever we discuss stays here, and the confidentiality aspect, it says that you go in this, you know. And it is so important for us to make people, especially when it's hurting. You see that idea, and I want to add this in, the idea of feeling safe. So with all that is going on, the confidentiality, creating that safe space, the idea that somebody could come to you and talk to you and feel safe, you know? And they could come and talk to you and tell you about everything and anything. And I said, I just put myself in some kind of situations, and I was like, not me, but the Lord. Because sometimes I've been like, Lord, why am I here? And then you realize, well, wait, I have to be here. Because, and I will sit down and I will listen to some people talk about some people, and when they express themselves, and when they finish, I didn't add in a sentence. I didn't say nothing. And all I hear is Thanksgiving. And I was like, but me I do nothing though. But they just wanted an avenue. There's like, I could call Ken to talk about this. And they call me, we talk, they say what I just said, the event, the thing, and it's like, all right, no problem. And that is where we, and then you see now that unfortunately, it might be happening individually, but I mean, was mentioning this and we talk about this, why person come up with this topic is because we have, as a church, we are very passive when we're dealing with these situations, right? We know that it exists, but we choose not to deal with it. We prefer to just let it, hopefully, we are hoping that it will die a natural death, but it wouldn't. Because 10 generations down the road, they're still dealing with the same problem because you're not addressing the issue. Because the thing is, addressing people, and that is where we feel sometimes that it might be attacking, but no. People, you're not attacking the person, you're attacking the issue. Because the issue needs to be fixed, the issue needs to be resolved. And in order to do that, we have to talk to the people. We can't separate the issue and say, let me deal with the issue and leave the person. We have to deal with the person and the issue there. So we have that. We have that challenge. But then I'm going to pause it. Oh gosh, right?
No. Even before we deal with the issue by confronting the person, somebody in the chat made a point about the Holy Spirit guidance.
Yes.
Because you ain't want to go there all hot and sweaty, blowing steam. Right? Because as we said earlier on, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. So you tell me this, I'm going to come in with the vengeance of Moko. I am coming with a Sabbath morning, you're causing ruction in Sabbath school.
Pressure.
You have to be humble. Lord, is it me? Is it really me, or is it the person? Lord, I need guidance. Right? And there will be some young person out there who is hurting. You need to seek the Lord in prayer. Seek God in prayer and let the Holy Spirit guide you to professional help. You see, I make a point again. Professional help. Because not all persons who say that these 7 days could help.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
I put in that plug. Not all those who say that they are 7 days and good spiritual leaders could help. They may not be equipped enough. But you need trained persons to take you from point A, being hurt, to point B, forgiveness and healing. And when you forgive, you not release the hurt and release the person out of you, right? And even in relationships and all too, sometimes, well, I could talk from experience. There's some, well, there was a female I was supposed to get married to, and she horned me, but now I was mad. They could do me this. Young doctor, they could do me this.
Nah, boy,
nah. And I was calling for she. And then, you know, the spirits have to talk to me. No, it's not like that. Because sometimes you do not know, once you hurt the person, you do not know who's watching on, who know you and watching the situation to see how you will react.
That's right.
Okay? So you could be hurt, but there are other young persons, there are family members who are watching you who may not be Christian to see how you're going to react now. That is why you need to seek Jesus in prayer, seek the Holy Ghost guidance, and you also need to seek professional help to release the person from your mentality, because if you continue that way and you do decide to settle down, you have that hurt inside of you and you carry it into your marriage, you're divorced 2 years down the road because you're still hurting from a next man hurt. You understand?
I want to come back to something, and is the point about leaving the church and going elsewhere. And even with that, sometimes that's just us running from the trauma. And even in us going elsewhere, we don't address the trauma.
That's right.
So you may be going somewhere and you may be feeling a little bit safe there, but yet you have not, because at the end of this is resolution of some sort. Right? But you have not come to a resolution, and sometimes you continue even though you have left and you're running everywhere, and it's on your back. It's on your back. But you trying to escape it all you want, but it's like a monkey holding on to it, it ain't going nowhere. So sometimes we have to go back to the space where we have been hurt to deal with that. It may not be right away, but some point we must confront those who, and that's not in an angry or a confrontational manner, but sometimes we have to say, I have been hurt by you. And sometimes, well, them hurt me, but I good. But then you're always posting some shady tweets. You know, you tell yourself, anybody ask you, I'm good. I don't care. You no longer care what they do. I don't care. But deep down, you have not reached the point that says, you hurt me. And sometimes we have to say, I was hurt by that. I was hurt by what you did. You know, sometimes we say, but they say what they say, and I good. I don't care now. But sometimes deep down we have to come to realization and sometimes we have to tell people you hurt me. Because sometimes people don't know how they impacted you.
That's true.
And sometimes in our heads we have, boy, how are they going to do that? And in their mind, well, I didn't even know I did anything. I didn't know I did something to really hurt them. And sometimes we have to come to a point and say, you hurt me, and you don't know how hard you hurt me. How hard it was. And then from there, you know, you could find resolution. So somewhere along the line, you have to go back and really resolve that trauma at some point in time.
No, I hear that, and I'm listening, and you know, what comes to mind is something that what our godly brethren just use when they want to resolve something. They come, brother, if I've hurt you in any way, you're laughing because I know. Right? Brother, if I've hurt you in any way, I'm sorry. But and I was like, I just listen to this and I hear people say, but you hurt me though, and you're coming if I hurt you. So it's like we give the impression that what I didn't know what I did was wrong. But the thing is, what you did was wrong. So I'm coming to me to tell me, brother, if I hurt you in any way, I am sorry. No, I react a particular way because of your hurt towards me, and now I'm trying to share that with you, but you don't want to get specific. And that is where the problem also, that adds more hurt. You understand? I mean, now you're taking it for a joke because it's like, you know, yeah, that's small thing. But we have to understand that when we're coming to this kind of thing, we have to be specific. This is the instance. It's like this. It's like I bring something to the board. I planned with my AY society and I brought this to the board. And you all looked at it and said, what foolishness is this? That's the best thing our young people that come up with. That's why young people can't do nothing. Or it does be dotation and just set of foolishness. And you will say that on the board. And then how am I supposed to feel going back to my young people to tell them that they just throw it out? And then I'm coming to you now, because now, after you have said that, we are hurting, so it's like, you know what, we ain't doing nothing for church, and for 2 months pass. And this is where the problem is. That we always look at ourselves and not look at we does always look at everybody else except ourselves. 2 months down the road, there's no AY service. Nobody from the board will come and inquire why there's no AY service. Nobody. They would be like, that's how them young people stop. Like how they are. Right? And then they just push it aside. I know some of us could relate to this. And then now, when they come to ask now and we tell them what's going on, they're like, but you can't say them kind of things there. You understand? We can't say those kind of, and that hurt people to the point that leave the church. When they leave the church, there's nothing you can say to bring them back because they are hurting. I know that I've spoken to a lot of people who no longer in church, and they said, you see what that brethren said to me, that is why I'm not there anymore. And then, you know, it's the unfortunate thing for us sometimes in church, and I've heard it said several times by elders, is that they leave church because they wasn't supposed to be in the first place.
No. Oh, no.
From elders. And I'm like, how do? What kind of authority I have to say they leave because they wasn't supposed to be in the first place? And then now you talking to them, and it's like, I could never come back there if that person there. And remember, we talk about different spiritual levels and this kind of stuff. But then even to bring them to that point there of forgiving the person and moving on, it even becomes more difficult when the same person that hurt them compounding it by justifying why they said what they said. You understand? And that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how it's supposed to be. And it becomes far more so traumatic that even you believe that there's a God, you believe that there's a creator, but the creator can't be in that church there. He can't be in there.
And you know, also sometimes, you know, this whole issue of pretense, right? We like to pretend that the church is perfect, right? And as our opening batsman this evening made mention to, the doctrines are perfect. But the way how we relate to people, it is not.
That's right, that's right.
Because the Bible said that Jesus was moved with compassion for people. And I believe that that as a conference or as a mission, we need to have seminars or workshop on how to be sympathetic and sympathy and empathy. Because we have a lot of senior elders who do not know how to show compassion.
That's correct. That's
how
correct.
to be sympathetic to young persons. So they will say what they want, when they want, how they want, off the back of the tongue, and not knowing the consequence of how the other persons as young people we will feel to it. So I think that leadership needs to deal with that on a leadership executive level. We need to allow our elders to know how to relate to young persons, how to interact with them. Because I have heard many horror stories, as Kurt mentioned just now. Majority of the time when young people leave is because of how senior people talk to people. Right? And you can't tell them, well, if they were really spiritually grounded, they would have never leave the church.
That is,
you see that nonsense? Nah.
That does.
If they really did love Jesus, they would have stayed.
They would have never,
They would have never leave the church. But you don't know how I feel in.
But
you understand?
But you just come and literally cuss me out without bad words.
Exactly.
Without using expertise. That's what you do to me. And you expect me to just accept that and be like, okay, yes, we are all unto heaven. We are marching to heaven. And be like, yes, I have no feelings. I'm in Jesus. That is crazy.
That is crazy. We are hurting. We are still human beings.
Yes.
Right? We still have to, we are social beings. We have to interact with people. And you have to know how to speak to people.
True.
Elders in the church, you have to know how to talk to the
One more
young
time,
person.
One more time.
Elders in the church, you have to know how to talk to people. And not only elders, senior women. You have to know how to talk to the young ladies. When they shirt short and they bosom outside, you have to know how to talk to them.
And that is it. That is it.
And that go ahead, Iriti.
No, I was just going to carry attention to the chat a bit, right? So, Dixia Broom said, it seems that we church people are so superficial. We have no idea how to be genuine. We are always pretending and putting on a show. And that's true. When we focus so much on the outward, when we focus so much on things that aren't really important, that is what we do. Everything is on the surface. And I like how she came back with a point. Sadly, brethren, hurt people because they are totally disconnected from the Spirit of God.
Right.
The Spirit of God, what is in our heart, is mostly important, right? So when we are disconnected from the Spirit of God, P.T.C.S is saying they are well possessed with another spirit, that everything they do is to show you up, or put you down, or just mince you. And that is true. We had a question coming in from ASI Tobago, just to prompt the chat. Not sure if you guys can.
No, but then they say if you go to the source,
right? It's intentional.
But the sauce is like, I don't know if it's tomato sauce, or sauce, but the sauce. No, but the sauce here is like it's sauce, you know, to throw on it. I just go in my way there.
Right?
Right. The source of hurt, and talk to the person. And the response was that they did it intentionally. What is the next step? And to me,
it seems that it's like a judgy situation.
No, but the thing is, I can talk from experience that persons have done things for me because they say I pushy and they intentionally do things to see me fall. And my response to them was like, okay, cool. If you not at that level yet to see that I'm not fighting you and the battle is not against flesh and blood, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
All right,
that's me.
All right,
I'm not one. Let me just finish it. I'm not one to be like, oh, they're fighting me down. I'm gonna fight them down. I don't have time for that. We are not wrestling against flesh and blood. As one of the sisters said in the chat, we fight in another spirit. And if you have that spirit, I'm not fighting you. So I will deal with you the same way that God will deal with me, and try to see you, to help you to realize, hey, that's not the way to go, but then I would help you to go to grow. I would help you to grow. If you don't get it, that is not on me. That is on you.
Okay, so based on the question, right? The question said that you hurt and you went to the individual, and the individual said that they did it intentionally.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The Bible said, if you have aught with your brother,
right,
go to them. And if that doesn't suffice, go to the elders of the church.
Right.
Follow Bible. You go to the elders, you talk to the first elder, you talk to whoever elder. Right? And all of us go and talk to the person. Right? If that doesn't suffice, then you bring it up. Well, I shouldn't say this, but you know if end of year session come up and you're looking for a little post, you can't get nothing there because you're being malicious, you're being spiteful, and that is not of Christ Jesus.
Yes.
All right, so you need, if there's young persons out there who are hurt and this is the situation, go to the eldership, go to the pastor, and let them have a conversation, a collective conversation with 2 or 3 or 4, not the whole church board.
That's right.
2 or 3 spiritual elders, and you go and talk to the person. Because they cannot continue to grow in the church like this.
And to add to that, there are some people who will never see themselves as wrong.
Yeah.
True.
And that is a reality that they have to live with. There are some people, all kind of person, narcissistic person, and all these things.
But remember, we're talking about 2 spirits. And I would always, and people may not agree, but that's okay. If I'm coming to you, a characteristic of a Christian is being humble. If I come to you and you're not humble, you don't have the Holy Spirit. If I'm coming to you to have a conversation about where you wronged me, if we're coming for the spirit of peace and you be on the defensive right through and you can't see it, you don't have the Holy Spirit.
I agree with that. And sometimes they start to release certain people to their own.
Yeah.
There are some situations that you have to resolve for you, and you can't resolve it for the other person. So you have to say, you know what? The person did me wrong, and I am making peace with the situation. Because the person is not ready to. You can't make peace with the person. The person isn't ready to make peace with you. And sometimes that's okay, because you have done what you have to do on your part. Because there are some people that they will never be wrong. They could never see the error of their ways, and you can't do anything about that, right? And you just I say, I release you into the hands of God, and let God deal with that.
That is it.
Let God deal with that.
I want to pull up something on the chat there.
Go ahead,
that somebody just put in the chat to the same question Yeah, right to the bottom. Nice. What if the person is an influencer with the church hierarchy?
Mercy.
And you see,
Mercy.
and you
That is
see,
what I was about to speak on.
God rooms. Oh, God. Couldn't understand what that was.
no, he does.
Oh, God
Yeah.
rooms.
He does. Lord help us.
We were talking about the church, right? But if you look at the church structure, most times what happens on the bottom or on feeder ground is a reflection of what's going on the top, right?
Yes.
So we have all these leadership, we have all these elders, let me call them the board members. They are so traumatized and hurt by one another that it's just a reflection. It goes all the way down.
It's a ripple effect. So you seeing somebody who is an influencer, and it's so unfortunate that some persons would use their influence to actually overpower you.
Yeah.
So it's like what you could come to see. You understand me? I am in the community. This is how the community sees me. You think they would believe what you are bringing, and this kind of stuff, which adds to it, and it's so unfortunate. And my word, you see that influencer with the church. How could we? Heaven bound. How could we come together? And before we reach in the board meeting, we hear, okay, this is what this person is bringing, but we don't want to do that in the church. And we have a little clique. We discuss what we have to discuss there. And then so when we come to the board, we come in and shut down that. Because of the fact that I am now, you hurt me, so I'm trying to come to you now to resolve the matter. But instead of you trying to resolve the matter, and because you have influence, anything that happens on the board that I have to present, you have certain people that's jumping in at it. And brethren, I'm getting passionate because it attacks me.
That is another trauma all by itself.
Personally, because it's like, how could us as Christians sit and be comfortable to come and cut down somebody on the board or even in the church? How could we be comfortable to come on the pulpit instead of we deal with it, brother? How could we come on the pulpit and make a whole sermon? And what did brother do?
Something is lacking.
Something is definitely lacking, because the thing is, if we look at how God called to resolve issues, God calls us private. It is a private thing between you and them. You deal with it on that level. If it don't work, he says step further. But he always say, he never say, to go to the world first before you come to the brother. Deal with it privately. If it doesn't work, he give you the steps about how to deal with it. And the thing is, brethren, you know, if we follow those simple steps, even if the matter is not resolved, there is no hurt.
But Kern, the question is, if the person is an influencer, so the Bible said you gather the elders, but if the elders are influencers against you,
how we do it?
Boy,
that is a ticklish one. And I will say there are some things that you have to seek the Lord in prayer, pray and fast about it, because this particular situation is a real thing that happened to a good friend of mine in Trinidad. Real thing. And I was shocked when I heard who the person was. I was shocked. And I say, oh Lord, and a good friend of mine, you know, every time I go to the church to preach, I just have to deal with him. Right? And he did this to my friend, and I was so shocked. Right? But my closing point is, if you are hurt, seek professional help. And you know, someone messaged me just now to make mention that if you are hurt based on sexual abuse, make sure and report it.
Okay?
Oh yeah,
Right? Male or female, report it to the higher protective services.
Yes.
Okay? Make sure and do that and seek professional help.
But you go back to that. And I was like, you know, I don't understand this hierarchy thing. You know? This hierarchy, no, because we cannot be of God, and even we always just look at when we deal with these things, how we gonna look. How we gonna look, the face of the church. You know, how we gonna look that this come out. I was like, let it come out, because the fact of the matter is we're not supposed to be focused on staying here. If it make us look bad, let it make us look bad. Let it come out, let it bring healing, and then we can move on from there, right? How long you gonna stay out in there? How long people gonna talk about it? They're gonna forget about it eventually. But we are living in a time that, hey, we have to be very serious about dealing with situations, about dealing with hurt, about dealing with these kind of things, because the reality is that you might think that you good, but then you don't know how you treating other people. And when you check and you realize, but wait, I did that. Because I have friends and you all are getting to know that I can be very insulting. Right? But I mean nothing by it. But there are certain friends I do not say anything to them because I realize they take it very personal. And realizing that, I had to step back and be like, okay, we cannot do that with this person. And then when you dig into it now, you realize that there's a whole lot of other things happening there. Now, I could just be myself around them and don't care, but I consider you as a friend. So I was like, okay, we can't say these things. Or this is a touchy topic, so we can't touch on this kind of stuff here. Because all of us be all fun and games, and then you see somebody started crying, it's like, why they crying like that? Because your intention was not to hurt, it was just fun. But then now you realize that you triggered something. So now you have to pull back and check yourself and you have to apologize. Mind you didn't do anything, in your mind you did anything wrong, but for them you did. So we have to be always careful and looking at people and this kind of stuff.
Another solution also that could also be helpful is you know, the Bible talks about heaping coals upon the person's head.
Right.
So acts of kindness. Right? So let me say communion come in. You have to wash foot.
Wash the people foot.
Wash their foot.
You have to wash. You know that sister tell you so, and you're hurting. And go and wash
their foot. Wash their foot.
Coals over their head. And I have seen in my life where that has really changed a certain person's perspective upon me. Right? They say all kind of thing about you, and then you go back now and their car break down. You go and help them. You know they're going through their little struggle. You call them and say a word of prayer, and you will see how that person has changed and turn around and say, well, you know, they used to say so about you, but because of my interaction with you, I can't see that. I can't see that. Right? So heap coals over their head.
Because you don't want them to say. Let them make sure that, like, they say whatever, but your action is saying something else.
Yes.
And then you realize that, hey, this is genuineness. And you're not doing it because of what they say. You're doing it because this is who I am. You understand me? And that is what is important for us, brethren.
Yeah. I want to add, as we wrap up, you know that E word that you mentioned, empathy. That word, I think it's of a lot of
Yes.
Empathy.
Yes.
If and sometimes it's us being willing to step into the shoes of others and see the world how others see it, and you know that it would help a lot. Because sometimes a lot of people go through things, and we come like the Pharisee and the other guy praying, and sometimes we are so high up, and Lord, I have done this. And sometimes what we really need to be praying is, Lord, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner. So sometimes just having empathy and be willing to see the world through other people's eyes will go a very long way.
Yes. So, brethren,
we're coming to an end.
Coming to an end.
We are coming to an end. And I would agree with Keith and what Deborah Isaac Belfort says. We can't change everybody at the end of the day. You may have been hurt by someone, but you can't, if they don't want to change, if it's not in their will, their desire to change, you can't force them to change. And so we have to leave it in God's hands. So like Deborah said, God has the final say. He is still in charge. All the influences that are not of God is of the devil.
That's right.
They will meet their end in God's time. Right? So let's keep that in mind as well.
Right. Major key. Keep God. That is very important. Keep God, regardless of what you're going through. Do not ever move away from God. Always keep God in focus. So with all that we're going through, and we thank you for joining us, just keep God in focus, and He will help you through whatever you're going through. And the next week,
Good. I know you're wrapping up.
Where's that?
Someone asked. I'm sorry, but someone asked in the chat earlier. They said it.
Empathy.
Someone said that it was a great program, right? And they're saying that this should be incorporated into the AY program.
Okay.
So
all right.
Let me do a tour now. Let me do a tour. Let me do a tour.
Should we tell them now?
Or wait till next
We
week?
would be at Glamorgan on the first Sabbath in June.
Yes.
Yes, the Youth War
Report.
Talk team, we will be in Glamorgan and we'll be doing the entire Sabbath days program at Glamorgan, so you all could join us there.
Yep.
Next week, we'll be looking at drinking and partying.
Woo.
Is it wrong? Is it right? Should I go to party as a Christian? Should I go to anything? We'll be looking at drinking and partying. Yes, we have a lot coming. Should I go to Tobago Carnival?
Both right.
And I heard the thing about the jam and the person prophesying about what will happen.
Yeah, we heard about that, so we'll discuss that. Yes.
We
will be.
discuss
So next week we'll be discussing drinking and partying. Happy Sabbath, everyone. See you all next week.
Bye bye.